Looking to get closer to the action? You need NFL Game Pass, the only place to follow your favorite team all season long. Watch every game live and on demand, or catch every touchdown on NFL Red Zone, and so much more.
We're not done yet.
You're in control, wherever you are, whenever you want, all year round. NFL Game Pass. Start your free trial.
You know why man's so different this year? Field sim. It changes everything. So I can finally throw the rock.
Hey, check it. Okay, I feel unstoppable. Losing's impossible.
And put the ball where only I can catch it.
Thing they know.
Yo, hit boy, what you think?
I could make the biggest hit in the game, man.
You ain't lying, bro. We live?
Oh, we live.
We made it till you got Dallas. Go out and shot for you.
Taylor?
Wait, just...
We're live.
Wait, what? Slice up the defense with Field Sense.
You can do that too.
We need some big plays, big hits, right now.
Say less.
Woo, now that's a hit.
Touche.
So, what can you change with Field Sense?
I don't judge, I sing. You staying down for the come up till I reign supreme.
Everything.
Let's get it. Yeah. Hit boy. We got another one.
Hey, welcome into the Irish NFL show, folks. It's Thursday night. We are 2 weeks out from the NFL season. I genuinely have to say that is a little bit scary, but it's all good. We're positive. Colin Cronin, Brian O'Leary. Lads, hold on while I get Brian up here to say, here we go. Brian, how are you? Lads, 2 weeks out from the NFL season. Sweet Jesus. I mean, where did the time go? Where did it go? And is that a Cowboys shirt, Colin? What's going on?
Yes, indeed. New season, new backdrop. It's not just any Cowboy shirt, though, Michael. It's DeMarcus Ware. He was with the Cowboys, but he won a ring with the Broncos. You know, absolute legend of the game, deserved to be in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. But we can come to the Hall of Fame probably later in the show. I also felt fitting, given the week that poor old Fred has had, I thought give him a bit of a pick me up and put a Cowboys jersey in the back.
Brian, a bit like a Ryanair or EasyJet flight, a warm welcome to our YouTube customers and podcast listeners.
Well, I'm surprised to see that jersey, being aired in Colum's house, but I do understand his affiliation for DeMarcus Ware. The way things are going with the Cowboys, and it's good news for every fan in that division, the way things are going, they might have to pull out DeMarcus Ware because they're running out of players, a lot of injuries. And 2 weeks to the new season. I saw something on social tonight on our page. Someone said, God, time goes very quickly. I can't believe we're just about to kick off a new season. I don't know where he's been living because I've found the last couple of months torture, agony, waiting to get to where we're at. And look, we're not far away now. It's an exciting time for all NFL fans because you have hope now, and it'll be quickly gone in a few weeks in September.
And imagine if Daniel Jones wasn't your quarterback, how would you feel? I'm actually going to change up the order. First off, obviously, folks, presented by Cassidy Travel. Deal of the week, same as last week because they're advertising it. 49ers Rams in San Fran. You've got 6 weeks to get out here for this. Week 4, 30th of September. But €1,100, $1,196 return. Great deal. Flights, rooms, tickets, all included. Could be a big year for the Niners. Obviously going to be a big year for the defending champion Rams. I'm going to switch up the order because obviously now, lads, 2.5 years in, we've got to produce an order and we're going to go through certain topics, but there's something's happened in the last couple of hours and I'm not sure if it's on the list, so I apologize if it is. I know you boys have probably seen this, but the whole situation in training camp with the Rams and the Bengals, and welcome to everyone in. Folks, if you want to ask your questions, get a question in. You can go on to YouTube, search Irish NFL Show. If you comment on that, we can put it onto the screen. Colin, I'll start with you. Aaron Donald, it looks as if it's down to the club in terms of discretion and how they can manage this. Have you seen the video of him maybe having maybe too much fun?
Yeah, double fisting helmets. It looked like, and yeah, look, Tom Pelissero was out to say that it is down to the individual clubs in terms of how they will look at it. So no doubt, you saw the coach's comments. I think immediately afterwards, both McVay and Taylor downplaying it. Nothing to see here. A little bit of handbags, and we don't need to get into who started it. Let's not finger point, all that sort of stuff. But yeah, look, Aaron Donald is an absolutely phenomenal player. You could make not just that he's the best non quarterback, but you could make an argument that he's the most important player in the entire NFL. But yeah, he has managed to get himself into trouble like this on more than one occasion, and swinging a helmet is quite the escalation. We're used to the kind of pushing, shoving fights at training camp. We've seen it possibly a little bit more than usual. Maybe this year, I think there was a fan hurt in the Panthers and the Patriots, and now this. Look, everyone likes to see, despite what's said, no one likes to see this sort of stuff. Everyone likes to see fights and scuffles, but you don't want to see a lad pull a helmet off another guy and try to crush his skull. I think that probably is taking it a little bit too far.
Brian, it seems as if Aaron Donald has maybe got too excited. You were talking at the start of the show about your excitement. It seems like he's already in like week 7.
I was surprised that they were doing the scrimmage together this week. I'd put it back to the Super Bowl. Like, I know they're playing each other in, like, most of the scrimmages, when the teams are doing the scrimmage, they're playing each other either a couple of days later, and that is the case this weekend. The Bengals are going to go into Southway again which is, let's be fair, like, it's meaningless games at this stage in week 3 of the preseason, but it does add a little bit more needle to the game this coming weekend, and it is kind of a bit surprising, bearing in mind they just came off a Super Bowl against each other, that there might be a little bit of tension and rawness from the Bengals' point of view that they lost, and maybe that's creeped over into today's session, and some players were a little bit more aggressive than they expected. And it's dangerous because we're seeing time and time again, we spoke about it last week, and it's just a continuous trend over the past week, the amount of players that are getting season-ending injuries in camp, and it's difficult for teams now at this stage. I think the sooner the camps are over, the better for all concerned.
Just a big shout out to NFL Game Pass for presenting this show. We are giving away a Game Pass code tonight. Colin is actually going to pick the winner before the end of this show. Colin, the person must not be from North America. That's the only rule, okay? Big shout out to our 2 winners so far. We had a video last night on the AFC North preview. All of our divisional previews are exclusively on YouTube and podcast format. First off, and we'll put them on maybe Twitter after a few days. It was an interesting AFC North preview, lads, but if you do want to get involved in this Game Pass giveaway, we'll keep it going to 10:30. It's a full year's Game Pass worth like £150 sterling, €170. It's a lot of dinero, lads, especially up north, so it's big money. Colin, obviously it's another week closer to the season. We're all down in Dublin at the minute. It's obviously a big week here with the college game this weekend. It's hard to believe that we're so close now. At the end of the day, like, we're sitting 2 weeks away from kickoff. Rams, Bills, 2 weeks tonight, and it seems as if we were sitting in SoFi, for me, 5 minutes ago.
In some ways, yes, and in other ways, it has the long off season is tortuous at times. But just I suppose on the Game Pass thing, Michael, even those who obviously there's going to be one winner tonight. We're going to have more competitions rolling out in the lead up to the start of the new season. But definitely would encourage people, because you can sign up for Game Pass for free at the moment. You can see all the preseason games.
Link in the bio as well. Link in the YouTube bio.
You can check out Hard Knocks, and there's a whole host of other stuff. I mean, Game Pass is essentially how certainly I have lived the NFL over the last few years, and we cannot wait to obviously have Scott Hansen back on the screens. It is the point where, this time next week we'll know the 53-man rosters. There'll obviously be some kind of surprises in some of the cuts. We might see some trades over the next week. The big talk today, I know Michael Lombardi was talking about it. I know that Sam Monson and Steve were talking about it on PFF and others, was probably around Jimmy Garoppolo. And it looks like the 49ers, despite what was said, remember way back in the spring, that they're totally cool with having both quarterbacks on the roster. That won't be an issue at all. They'll pay him $25 million to be a backup. It seems like on the Friday before the start of the new season, Jimmy Garoppolo will be cut. Jimmy Garoppolo will go to the Seattle Seahawks. Seems to be what is most likely, unless Pete Carroll. And let's face it, in terms of the clips that you see, you never want to get too hyped, but Pete Carroll clearly looked like the best quarterback the Seahawks have on the roster. Amazing throw for a guy who's 70. I'm reminded, of that famous quote about Carlton Palmer. Carlton could trap a ball further than I can throw it. Pete could certainly throw a ball further than I could. And he's got, 30 plus years on me. So yeah, really interested to see what happens there. But I don't think Jimmy G plays week 1 for the Seahawks, but I do think he plays week 2.
Week two being the game against the Seahawks, 49ers Seahawks week 2, and that's arguably the reason why they're going to delay the release as long as possible, so that the Seahawks won't have enough time to get them up to speed on the offense, and essentially they might have to hold them back till week 3 when they play the Falcons, which is a much more winnable game, bearing in mind the situation we believe that the Falcons are in. So I think it's probably not coming as a surprise. It's just the way it's played out. It's a strategic move to hold them back as long as possible because they know the outcome is a new home for them within the division.
A couple of comments here before I react to that. Gavin Smith is saying, are we recording pre-game on Saturday? We're actually live on Saturday at 10 a.m. That's 10 a.m. Ireland, UK, 5 a.m. Eastern if you're really keen. And if you're really keen, 2 a.m. Pacific from the Aviva Stadium. Some guests that we're going to announce tomorrow. And some fantasy tips, I have none. But I will react to Brian and Colum's comments in regards to Jimmy Garoppolo. First off, QB1 in Seattle's Pete Carroll at the minute. I mean, that video is superb. And I'm going to say it now. We're on the 25th of August. We're 2 weeks out from the season, lads. 2 years ago, Jimmy Garoppolo was 6 minutes and 45 seconds or something away from winning the Super Bowl. What a gamble this is. This is a massive, massive gamble, in my opinion. Bringing in Trey Lance, giving him the offense. You can throw all these dimes down the field or do whatever during preseason, but when push comes to shove, and when you get to week 1 to week 6 or whatever, and when everybody actually cares about it, this is a massive, massive statement by Shanahan, a massive statement by Lynch, and I genuinely, lads, feel as if the 49ers are making a mistake in not keeping Jimmy Garoppolo. And if they let him go or cut him or whatever, or if he walks in terms of the whole contract situation, I think they're making a mistake. And if Seattle get him, I think that transforms their season. Because if you go from Geno Smith against Drew Lock to Jimmy Garoppolo, and if you've got DK Metcalf there, it blows the West open. I just don't... I understand the 49ers have traded a couple of years ago for Trey. Sorry, not traded. They've drafted a couple of years ago for Trey Lance, and they've put a lot of capital into him and a lot of time into him. And I know there's stories about Jimmy Garoppolo and his effort after that whole extent, the whole contract situation. It just doesn't add up for me. And I've a couple of mates that I work with at the minute that are very in on the Niners. I just don't get it. I don't get the hype around Trey Lance. I want to be wrong, but this is the beauty of it being 2 weeks out. We'll see in a few weeks. And I hope to God that Jimmy Garoppolo is not playing for Seattle outside of week 3, personally.
I think the difficulty here is that there's so much expected of this 49ers team this year. They went to the championship game last year. They were a couple of minutes from potentially getting into the Super Bowl. If their safety doesn't drop the interception, they are going to the Super Bowl. So there's so much expected of them. And I think a lot of 49ers fans, you've said a sentiment that I've heard from a lot of 49ers fans, Michael. They're not convinced that Lance, not saying he's not convinced that he's not the answer in the long run, but bearing in mind where this team is on this kind of road to getting to where they want to be. They were in the Super Bowl a couple of years ago, as you said, championship game last year, potential to be really up there again this year. Is he going to be the guy that can get them over the hump? And I have my doubts as well, to be honest. I've said it time and time again. I know Colin was quite high on him. He was last year when we went the draft, so he's obviously going to stick to his guns on this. But I think it's a brave move. But Shanahan, as much as we've spoke about this all summer long and all winter long, whatever you want to call it, Shanahan, John Lynch at the combine in February, 3 weeks removed from the Super Bowl, said, it's Trey Lance's team now. Jimmy understands the predicament we're in. We have to move on with this new quarterback. So when there was a bit of hullabaloo when they announced it officially again in August, did anybody really take any notice of it in terms of it being a shock? No, this was always going to play out the way. I don't know it's the right move, but it's inevitable that this was going to play out. So, and yeah, I do agree. I think it makes things a little bit more interesting. It's funny. You talk about Tom Brady there from NFL Network. He suggested last week on the Rich Eisen show that even with the current quarterbacks in which they have, the Seahawks will be in the playoffs this year. He's that confident on them, and I'm not joking. You can go and listen to it. He thinks that this team is very underrated, and this is prior to so maybe at that stage he knew what was coming, but he's very confident this team could go to playoffs. And Michael, you're suggesting this blows the division open, so you obviously give them a bit of a squeak as well.
I think, if they bring Jimmy Garoppolo in and if they implement the system around him where he can use the wide receiver and tight end core to implement that strategy, then of course. But Geno Smith and Drew Lock are not winning the division where you've got 2 games against Matthew Stafford and that Avengers Endgame offense and the Rams even. I mean, I still think Odell's going to come back in there in a few weeks. The Cardinals, where Kyler Murray's got a point to prove, and the Niners, where apparently Trey Lance, I've been to Mass most weeks since I was a child, right? And we hear about the Messiah. And you'd think that Trey Lance was up there with Big JC. Do you know what I mean? Like every week. I just can't see how the Seahawks get there. It's just strange. But I will take what you said on Palacero about the about the Seahawks, and I will push Baltimore to you. We had a show last night where we talked about the AFC North. I am starting to think that Baltimore could be in the AFC Championship game. I rate them that highly. I think this could be the year. Genuinely, lads.
Don't be giving too much away, Michael, for your season preview show.
I don't want to give too much away, but I do think they're going to be up there. And I feel like a lot of people, like Palacero talking about underrating the Seahawks is one thing. That's a whole different situation. But obviously Baltimore have got the assets and talent there, but I think they are being underrated.
I think that's a lot to do with last year's performance, whether it's injury or not. I thought, sorry, Colin, I thought you were going to come there. Justin Fields is the Messiah, no? Michael, I thought as a man who tends to...
But Chicago, I mean, there's nothing around him. Like, literally, Justin Fields this year could literally win 2 games. That's the situation we're in now. And I'm sorry to all the Bears fans in Ireland, including the people that are in Ireland at the minute from Chicago, because Colin, I know you work in Dublin, you've seen the amount of people here from Chicago this week. A lot of people are in the Bears, and nothing's happening this year with Chicago. Like Chicago, we're going to go under 4.5 this year. Yeah.
I don't think anyone is expecting anything. I think what you'd hear from people is that they've put Justin Fields in an awful position. They went and they got a QB and they've done nothing to help him. I mean, Mara talks about how the Giants didn't help Daniel Jones. The Bears have probably put Justin Fields in an even worse position. I am high on Trey Lance, and part of that is because I think Kyle Shanahan is an offensive genius. I am really interested to see how he does it without Mike McDaniel. But for the Bears and for Justin Fields, it almost feels unfair. I mean, look, they came in and in some ways it is similar to the Giants, right? The new regime kind of had nothing to work with, right? They had very little cap space. They didn't have the picks, and nothing seems to be working out. When you're shopping your second round pick last year and seeing what you can get for him, that is kind of telling. So I don't think anyone has expectations for for the Bears. I think when it comes to the Niners, I think there's a huge division. I think there are people like me who believe in, say, Trey Lance, believe in what Kyle Shanahan can do. I think there are plenty of others, and I think there was there've been plenty of talk around the league about how people don't think Trey Lance will be able to take the step up. We've seen some stories. I think Mike Silver had a story over the summer regarding the consistency, but he's a kid who's barely played. I think the consistency will be, so a lot of it is going to be in terms of how Shanahan can scheme to make up for that.
Yeah, big shout to Fred for all his comments about backdrops. I'm in Dublin, Fred, for this game on Saturday. Hopefully, lads, we're going to meet Fred for the first time on Saturday. That's the hope. And for all the people listening on the podcast, wondering who Fred is, we'll get into that in a different episode. If you are joining us for the first time tonight, folks, we're 2 weeks out from the season. YouTube bio, click on the link. NFL Game Pass free trial. You can get a free trial from now to week 1. And we're going to be giving away Game Pass for the next 2 weeks on every divisional preview. Mark joined us last night for the AFC North preview as well, which is good. I'll go with Brian first, Colin, because you were the last person to say something here. Brian, have you ever, before we get into this conversation, have you ever been to Newry before?
Can't say I have, Michael.
You've never been to Newry? Never.
No.
Have you passed it going up north? No?
Oh, I have, yeah. I think I have, yeah.
Okay. Right, so I was sitting in, people will know this, all right, up north, believe me. I was sitting in Five Ways this morning, and Five Ways is the big shop up in Newry. Put my phone on, and I seen the injury situation with the Cowboys. And genuinely, lads, I could not believe it. Tyron Smith is probably, and I know they're saying he could be back in before Christmas or back in at the start of December for the Cowboys. This is a massive, massive loss, Brian, for a team that need things to go their way. There's, Colin has talked about this in certain situations about the running game. I personally think they're not stacked enough in certain positions in their defense to actually get over the line outside of the East in the NFC. This is a big loss for the Cowboys, yeah?
Yeah, their offensive line has been a bit erratic throughout the course of this offseason in terms of players moving around, and even what we've seen in camp and stuff, and there's been quite negative reports coming back. And for him to go, and arguably he'd been their best player, on the line, he's gone. The left tackle is an immediate need straight away. I think they'll probably move Terrence Steele from right tackle over to left tackle and hope he can adjust to that position, but then that leaves a gap at right tackle. So Connor Williams went to the Dolphins in free agency, and he had a really bad last game for them against the 49ers, and Dale Collins has gone to the Bengals as well. So they have lost players that have tried to readjust, and we've gradually seen over the past year or two, Cowboys fans might challenge us that for an offensive line that was so secure for a number of years, it's kind of come back a little bit, and it wasn't as successful as it's been. So now they're really in a bit of a position, but they've got injuries in other positions, and they've got players coming back from serious injuries. Like Gallup's coming back, so we don't know what's going to come of him. And Collins called out time and time again when we've discussed teams that are going one way and the other way this offseason, that he feels that the Cowboys are declining, and I suppose he's put the Eagles as a favourites for the division. And right now, you'd find it very hard to argue with that, and this doesn't help the situation. Colin touched on earlier about potential trades and potential players who are released by teams, then moving very quickly to other teams. I think we might find next week that the Cowboys are quickly picking up players on the O-line. But then you're going into week 1 against a Bucs defense on Sunday Night Football with potentially a patched up offensive line that hasn't had much time to gel. And okay, we've seen teams come together quickly, but it's still a risk and a gamble. So be interesting to see what comes of this Cowboys team now.
And Colin, you're going into week 1 with a Bucs team whose quarterback has not played in 2 weeks. I mean, there are certain situations. There's Saints fans. If you look at the Saints schedule, they've got the Bucs week 2, but outside of that, they've got, in my opinion, winnable games. The Saints reckon they can go 5-0, literally 4 or 5-0. That Bucs team for the Cowboys, I understand they've got injuries and they've got situations around that line, but if Brady's going to go on a Masked Singer for a couple of weeks and have a situation, I mean, this is a time for them to actually excel, isn't it? Because it seems to me, I actually look at this Cowboys-Bucs game in 2 weeks and think, if the Cowboys were going to get a result, it's week 1 against the Bucs. It's not going to be week 10 or week 5. It's the statement win week 1.
Um, yeah, I can see your logic. I just don't think it will happen. And I think we've talked a little bit on the show before, and when I last spoke to Sam Monson when we had him on a few weeks ago, he and I discussed around Dak, and one of the big issues with Dak is that he can be a very, very good QB, but Dak is somebody who he doesn't adjust well to change, right? That's just the reality. So losing players at this kind of late stage, and losing a player who, granted, what has that injury history, but who is a phenomenal player when he's on the field, I think it will impact on Dak. I also think it is it's 2022, and you have Jerry Jones going on TV, getting involved, and saying the Cowboys are as Zeke goes. I mean, it's 2022, Jerry. Like the days of the running back dominating and dictating things are over. Even when Derrick Henry went down for the Titans last year, you saw them deal without him. So Jerry seems to still think that he's back in the 90s. He keeps trying to recreate the magic that the Cowboys had, and they were absolutely magic back then, right? Don't get me wrong. They were phenomenal. They were entertaining on and off the field. Read Boys Will Be Boys, definitely a good NFL book. I just don't see it, Michael. I don't see where, even with the Bucs issues on the line, look at the receiving talent they had. The Cowboys had Amari Cooper go. They didn't replace him. Collins is gone, and they didn't replace him. Now they've lost another player on the line, and they are talking about leaning into Zeke. Diggs was unbelievable last year with 11 interceptions, but realistically, how likely is he to, catch fire like that again? I think he might have half the number of interceptions this season. So I really think it's going to be a season of struggle for the Cowboys.
Ryan, is week 1 in Dallas or in Tampa Bay?
In Dallas. Sunday night football.
Cowboys win. And I think Tampa are the better team. Cowboys win. Remember that last down of the Cowboys season? Do you remember I was sitting at the house and we were texting each other watching that game. And the sheer ineptitude of that
laughing, weren't we, Michael? No? Were we not laughing? Were we not laughing?
No, yeah, we were all laughing. But no, I think Dallas will somehow find a way to win this game week 1. And I don't want to give away picks already, but
yeah, I think you just did.
I just think that I just think that the Bucs have had so many question marks over the last 6 or 7 months. They lose their head coach. Brady walks away for 2 weeks. I mean, if this was any other team, this would be a significant issue. And I said that about the Patriots and their coaching situation with numerous positions. I'll say it with the Bucs with Brady walking away. I don't care if Brady was on the Masked Singer look, if something was going on, I hope he's okay, etc., etc. He wasn't there for 2 weeks. Kirk Cousins had 2 weeks extra with his Vikings offense, So that's the way I look at it. I think Jerry World, Sunday Night Football, week 1, the adrenaline just gets them over the line. And it would be interesting because if the Bucs, Brian, did go 0-1 after a Cowboys defeat,
they've got a very difficult start.
Start asking questions.
And the Bucs have a difficult start. I can't recall who they have in week 2. I think it's the Saints, actually, I think, in week 2, and then they play the Packers in week 3. So they don't have the easiest starts. And I agree with you, like, week 1 is always one of those games. When do you want to play them at the right time? Play them week 1. You suggest about Brady and the fact that he's been away for 10 days, but as Colin was reminding me time and time again, Brady went to the Bucs during COVID when there was no off-season and there was no training camp, and he didn't know the players, and then the players knew him, and he still found a way to win a Super Bowl. So him taking 10 days off to me means absolutely nothing. He'll be ready come week 1. Fred mentioned there. Do we have to touch on that?
I would genuinely love a very, very quick conversation because me and Colin talked about this the other day, Brian. And I'll start. You know what, Brian? I'll start with you. I'll go with you then, Colin. And I'm sure you've seen this because I know you're a big USC fan. Dana White had the conversation about the Raiders, and apparently that Gruden was in for Brady and Gronkowski. and it was all going to happen until Gruden pulled the plug. I said the column the other day about this. I've never seen Gronkowski as uncomfortable ever. He just looked like he did not want to be there. It looked like it was genuinely the truth, and how things could have changed if that is the truth, and if the Raiders could have had Tom Brady instead of the Bucs, we could have been looking at a whole different league now, because the AFC West could have been blown up for a start, and it's just intriguing.
Yeah, fair enough. But there's other teams that were in play as well. It does make sense in a way, because if you recall, Brady did that program. I think maybe it might have been last year, where he spoke about, you're going to go with that quarterback instead of signing me. And we all thought it was the Dolphins. And as time has gone on and this piece has come out this week, it would make sense that he's suggesting that Gruden basically gave him the call and said, no, we're going to stick with Derek Carr over you. But then again, I know the Saints were very keen to get him as well. And they kind of put Breeze in a position. Breeze was him and Han about retirement, and he found out that they were going to bring in Brady to replace him. And Saints played the Bucs in the playoffs that year in the divisional round. If Brady had been on the other side and Breeze was gone, you know, what would happen then with the Saints gone and won the Super Bowl? So I think there's a lot of ifs. And look, for Brady, I think what I would say is a lot of people felt he was going to go back to the West Coast because he grew up on that side of the country. But there was always that piece, which he clearly said in his program, if you get an opportunity to watch the man in the arena, he said he always had the intention to stay on the East Coast because he wanted to be as close as possible to his son from a different relationship, obviously, who was a little bit older, and he was very keen, and it made more sense to go to the Bucs. So maybe he could pull the plug on the deal. Who knows? But certainly provided a bit of detail this week and a bit of insight.
Colin, I know you've chatted about this to me on a different podcast, but I actually watched the video back after we spoke the other day, and the way in which Dana White talks is a guy that was pretty confident, and I think it does speak volumes, because for me it's like we've had a lot of this talk in the offseason, and I know Brian's touching this a wee bit about the Dolphins and Brady. If Brady was up for doing that with the Raiders and suddenly he goes to the Bucs, maybe he was looking out this year, and maybe he wanted to go to Miami, and maybe there was a leave of 2 weeks, and maybe he was trying to do something. You know, it just seems like an off-season like no other for Tom Brady, a guy that's been in the league for 20-odd years, and there's always been something, whether it's like an off-season situation or something in season. I mean, like he's the best quarterback ever, right? But if there is something going on with him, we're going to find out very quickly. Like, genuinely, I really, really feel that. Because if he had second thoughts about coming back, I just think in week 1, you'll see it on the field. And you talked previously about maybe the certain, not downgrade, but he started to look a touch. And even if it was 0.01%, he started to maybe go down a bit, slow down a bit in his age. And it would be intriguing to see him do that this season, and this probably is his last season.
Yeah, I do think it probably is his last season. Look, I think it'll be until maybe Brady himself comes out and clarifies, if he ever does. There'll always be that debate and discussion about where exactly he wanted to go. There's always the talk around San Francisco, and that, you know, he wanted his parents to be able to drive to the stadium to be able to see him kind of for the first time in, what would that have been, probably 30 years at that stage. Then, you know, the stuff around the Dolphins. In terms of the Raiders, I can see it having made a lot of sense, right? This once storied franchise who were truly incredible. We all know John Madden. We all know about Just Win and Al Davis and everything that they did. I think the opportunity to kind of restore them to their former glory, that would be appealing to anyone. I would say Tom Brady is certainly undoubtedly the most successful. That is, there's nobody who comes close to him on that. The best, you could definitely have a very interesting debate around who the best QB is, and I suppose the way in which people have changed the game and whatnot. But Brady is gifted. He's absolutely elite. He remains elite. I do think that we saw a slight decline, which means that he went from being a deity to being slightly more human. Still means Tom Brady is one of the best QBs in the entirety of the league. We have seen no real drop off. I don't imagine we will see anything like a Gary Neville-esque moment where he realizes with 30 minutes into the game that this is not for me anymore. I need to retire at halftime. That's never going to happen with Tom Brady. But I do think it is the last year. I think the Saints, I can see why they feel it. They've had his number in the regular season, but the Saints are now they've lost Drew Brees, right? And now then they lost Sean Payton. It's a huge transition to me. And Dennis Allen has a lot to prove. We talk about Josh McDaniels having a lot to prove, and I think some of that is because he left the Colts waiting at the altar. But Dennis Allen has a lot to prove as the head coach as well. So we have to see how that plays out for the Saints. But I guarantee you, when January rolls around, Tom Brady and the Bucs will be there or thereabouts.
Let's see what happens. Brian, obviously very, very quickly, the Saints. Okay, Dennis Allen coming in, massive questions on the offensive line for me. And I said this last week as well. And also looking at our next topic, a guy, 31 years of age, Jesse Tretter, head of the NFLPA, if I'm correct as well, announced his retirement today. Played for the Browns and the Packers over an 8-year career. And he was linked with a number of different teams. But I have got an exclusive for you boys tonight. Do you want to hear it? Okay, right. Jeff Reinbold spoke with Cole Beasley yesterday on a podcast that's going to drop tomorrow. And Cole Beasley said that he has got offers from multiple teams. But, quote, he does not want to go up north again. And that's going to drop tomorrow afternoon. There's multiple things he has said in it, and that's all I can really say. But there's a wee exclusive, which nobody probably cares about. But there it is. Brian,
is he vaccinated you?
I didn't ask him. It was a good interview, to be fair. I have an idea of where he's going to go, and it actually is our next topic in a wee minute, if you want to maybe talk about it there. But Jesse Tretter obviously retiring. It's strange because there wasn't enough offers, Brian, to come in for him.
Well, it was one of those situations where I thought he was holding on because he knew at some stage with all the injuries. We spoke about players who sit tight and then they come to season starts and injury takes place and they get a move more to a team that's more suitable to their aspirations in terms of what to be on a team going towards the Super Bowl. And I thought that's how it would play out with Jimmy G. I thought it may not be Seattle. I thought he might just hold fire for a couple of weeks when he does get released by the 49ers and see who potentially picks up an injury. It's a gamble. I thought JC Tretter was going the same route because he's a solid player over the years, 9 years in the league, Green Bay and then with the Browns. And every time there was an injury, which has been a lot of in training camp on offensive line, immediately the question that you see on social is JC Tretter, our team's going to reach out and get him in because he could be an upgrade on the team. It hasn't come to pass. He said he wants to focus on his work within the NFLPA, which is admirable as well because he's done so well for the players in terms of being there at the forefront when the deals are being taking place. So great player, great servant, and it's unfortunate because at 31 you'd feel there's teams out there that would be looking to snap him up in the next week or two when they do pick up more injuries and have to.
31's the way it is. Like, I'm 31. I mean,
imagine you retiring at 31, Michael. I mean, I'm talking about retiring at 50, Michael. I'm nearly there. So.
I might. Do you know what? I might pack it in. I might just, sayonara. Good luck. 31 years of age, calling to retire is. I'm jealous.
Well, he's retiring from football. He's not retiring from the working environment, so it's two different things,
But geez, 31 to retire from your main profession is nice. Like 31 years of age.
Well,
Jesus, lads.
and still playing really, really well. I mean, there was a really interesting piece. If people haven't read it, Alex Pruitt, I'm probably butchering his name, but in SI wrote a really, really interesting, one of the most interesting pieces I've read this off season, where he did an interview and a kind of a profile piece of him. And basically, he has said that his role meant that teams weren't willing to take a chance, that essentially they'll all blame it on the knees, but his knees weren't an issue. His knee was an issue the first kind of 7 weeks last year. Didn't have a problem with it from week 8 onwards. And then Seth Walder, who we have had on the show, because a direct quote from Tretter was that Minnesota never returned the call, and he compared it to Garrett Bradbury, who was 31st in pass block win rate. Tretter was 3rd, and in run block, Bradbury was 19th. Tretter was 2nd. So I guess it'll be one of those, the great unanswered. But it was a really interesting piece in terms of what he wants the players to do. There's a long time now between now and the next CBA, 8 years essentially, before it'll be in agreement. But he is very keen on the players having more of a voice, the players sticking together and kind of flexing their muscles a little bit more to get more for them. He goes into it, I suppose, the different types. That's why I found the piece really, really interesting, because it's not obviously, it focuses a little bit on him, but he talks about the kind of the different strands within the league in terms of the guys who, are on a vet minimum or a rookie minimum, and the guys who are getting the guaranteed contracts. He also talks about guaranteed contracts and the way in which he hopes that they become a staple in the NFL. So really interesting to see how that plays out. But yeah, if the offers just aren't there, but it is fascinating because there are so many teams kind of crying out for an O-line guy of his capability and his leadership, and instead he's going to retire. But great for him. He'll be 40. He'll still have the use of his knees and his hips.
Very jealous of that. Obviously, like, it's intriguing. It popped up on my phone around. It was 31 years. I actually thought he was a bit older than that, to be honest with you. The next term of notes that we have on our show tonight in terms of producing is, and obviously thank you to Brian for the excellent notes tonight. I do have one issue, Brian. Week 3 of preseason. Is there anything to maybe talk about here? I mean, I tweeted out on a different account today about Desmond Ritter and how good he looked, and I got done for it. People just don't care. Is there anything that stands out for you this week in terms of week 3? Because back in the day, 2 or 3 years ago, we had week 4, and now it seems like week 3 maybe has turned into that week 4 where it's like,
it really is amazing, isn't it? Like, let's be fair. Like, the Brady thing, he's going to play against the Colts on Saturday. A couple of drives. Be interested to see how rusty he potentially is. And then the news that broke this evening around the Jimmy G has killed the Geno stroke Drew Lock saga, which it continues because there was a conversation about both of them playing a half each.
And Pete Carroll as well. Let's not forget about Pete Carroll, QB1 potentially.
Yeah, Pete Carroll coming. Yeah, okay, the video that keeps going around. I think I watched it once, Michael, and got part of it, to be honest. I think most teams this weekend will be just praying that for the players that do, because there will be teams that will, like the Jets have already confirmed they're putting their starters in on Sunday evening at 6 o'clock against the Giants. The Giants are going the opposite way. They're completely taking everybody out. So you're going to get players on the bubble, like Colin says, who are trying to make a point and trying to make the final cut, who will be given the 100% commitment with tackles and everything. And if you get any players who are first teamers kind of been a bit reluctant, they could end up getting injuries. So we've seen over the past week some players who are fortunate to get away with potentially season-ending injuries, including my good friend Kevin Thibodeau, which when people woke up last Monday morning were fearing the worst that he could be gone already, and thankfully it's only a 3-week injury. So, but I guarantee someone this weekend will be giving out about their team playing a certain player for a period of time and he ends up getting injured. So let's just do away with it now and get on with the real action. It's time. There's too much talk. It's time to get going. 2 weeks tonight. Can't wait.
And Colin, Brian was talking there about the Giants and Kevin Thibodeau. Rumor has it to believe that Giants fans are saying that Daniel Jones is balling out, quote, balling out, against the Jets at the minute. Brian are having a joint practice, yeah?
Joint practice today. It's gone full circle, Michael. Last week, well, don't say last week, the week prior to that, it was Jones is a bust, which a lot of people feel anyway, in camp, and camp is camp. So let's not get too carried away with it when it's good and when it's bad. So a lot of people were getting a bit disgruntled, including myself, to be honest, at times around what was being read about him in terms of how poor he'd looked. But over the past 10 days, he seems to have completely turned things around. If you're believing camp, and even his performance last weekend against the Bengals, first team I might add in terms of defense, was quite impressive. And maybe he will have a better season than I'm predicting, but I'm still going to be a little bit reserved in my thoughts regarding Daniel Jones.
And Colm, as Brian said a few weeks ago on the show, he needs to have at least an MVP caliber season to stay in New York.
He's not going to be in New York next year.
He might be there.
Look, let's talk about the fact there might be some excitement because we may well have an Irishman in the NFL for the first time in 37 years.
37 years. How old are you, or Colm? Are you older than 37?
Yes. It has been longer than I have been alive that we haven't had a player there. I mean, it would be great to see. I mean, it was kind of the route that we kind of, I suppose, expected, was that go to camp, get some stuff on film. People can see. I'm sure Doug Peterson, as an experienced head coach, would have been talking to others around the league, saying, "Listen, we're looking for a kicker. Do you have somebody who might not make your roster, but we could bring in?" And James McCourt's name obviously came up. We spoke to him. I thought it was a really interesting interview in terms of the way in which he went into his philosophy in terms of kicking, but overcoming setbacks. I think that was one of the things that maybe differentiated him from a lot of the players we hear talking, that he went so deep into it in terms of leadership and team building and things like that. So I think he'll be a great addition to the roster with the Jags. We saw him there. Demetrius Harvey, who was a Jags beat writer, had a video, said that James went 8 for 8 in camp today. So obviously probably we'll see him kicking against the Falcons at the weekend, and really hoping, keeping our fingers crossed, that there isn't an injury there, and that we will see an Irishman take to the field. And that would mean also, Michael, that we might well see him in London at the end of October.
Against your team. Brian, I know you've got a point. I want to add to it, okay? Because I know you're going to have a discussion here. I spoke to Tig Leader this morning in Dublin. Obviously, Tig was trying to go to the CFL, didn't work out. And we talked about the journey of someone trying to get into the league, especially with somebody that was maybe born in Ireland. Obviously, James has been in college in Illinois. It's opened up for him. And for people maybe listening to this podcast that have never heard of it, James is now in a situation where there is no other kicker in Jacksonville. This is it. This has to be it. He's literally got 10 days, and I don't want to jinx it. We're not going to jinx it. We're going to light a metaphoric candle, bless ourselves, whatever you want to do religious-wise. Just pray that it works out for him, because it could be incredible. Because if we get somebody into this league, I really feel, especially a kicker and that importance in that position, it could be a situation where maybe James could be in the league for a certain amount of time, and it could really mean an awful lot to a lot of people on this island.
Yeah, I was just going to talk again. Colm touched on about how enjoyable the interview actually was, and some really things that he called out was he's 24, so he's a little bit older than your average player going into the NFL through the draft process. He wasn't selected in the first 7 rounds. He went to the Chargers as an undrafted rookie. That didn't seem to bother him whatsoever. And he spoke about the fact that he held back during COVID, and he stayed into the next year when he could have potentially came out. And he said that was more benefit to him, and he felt it would have given the better, I suppose, the better option in the long term in terms of career. It has played out. You're right, Michael. I mean, he's the only kicker there, and without sounding silly, and been very evident, it's his to lose. And 8-0-8 today in camp is quite impressive. Demetrius even pointed out some of these were quite long in terms of they weren't gimmies. But yeah, this game on Saturday against the Falcons is crucial for him. I mean, he's going to get opportunities, and look, we're all praying and we hope that it works out well, because once he's gone over to the States, I think he said 12 years of age, he still had a sense of Irishness about him. He spoke about how his grandparents, his grandmother in particular, has had people come up to her on the street and say, "You're the grandmother of James McCourt." So people out there are starting to pick up awareness around the fact that he's Irish, he's over there, and he's an opportunity. So we're rooting for him. And then come week 1, the Jags play in Washington. So of course I'll be rooting for the Jags anyway, because I'd love to see Washington compete on week 1. And hopefully he kicks the last second field goal and we'll all be delighted. But look, please God, this plays out. It's a great opportunity. And it's great because people who are getting into the game, who want to play the game, you saw the impetus and how encouraged you were by going up to the game in Belfast recently in terms of the popularity. It only helps grow the game even more here when you've actually got people who resonate with this country who are playing in the league itself.
Yeah, I think it's important to maybe point out, first off, it has been great. If you're watching this show or listening to this show from the UK especially, it's been great over the last few years to see lads from the UK go through the IPP and to really accelerate their careers and do well in the league. I think for people in Ireland, sometimes they may feel a bit more maybe disconnected from that, because it is a different region, whether it's the north or south or whatever. It's a different situation. And for someone like James to potentially get into this league, it's a massive deal. And one thing, obviously James was born in Ireland, born in Dublin. If James was born in New York or born in Florida, and if his parents were from Ireland, I think we'd be in the same situation here. This is a massive, massive moment for the sport in this country, and we wish him the very, very best over the next few weeks. I feel, as Brian said there, obviously a very, very big game at the weekend against Atlanta. I mean, Atlanta, lads. Hopefully it'll be okay. I think if he gets through that, he'll be sweet. We've seen during the preseason, if you do catch up on a couple of the Chargers games, week 1, week 2 of the preseason, you can check out an NFL Game Pass link in the bio on YouTube to get a free trial. And obviously this weekend as well for the Jacksonville Jaguars. And as Colin said, pretty cool. Like, if he does sign with the Jaguars and if he is an active participant in the roster, we're going to see him once a year. So it's pretty cool. We've got another storyline to talk about, and it's about the Panthers and Baker Mayfield. He's now the starting quarterback. Matt Corral, the pick in the draft for the Panthers, is on a season-ending injury. We have to talk about now, gentlemen. Will Baker Mayfield have a clean run, or will they move to Sam Darnold if things don't progress? I'll just start off because I think I'm going to sum this up very quickly. No, they won't. What? No, they're not going to go. Sam Darnold's done, lads. Sam Darnold, unless the Jets or someone goes in for him again, he's finished in this league. Baker Mayfield, they'll give him the season. The GM, the HC in Carolina are beyond the point of on the thin line here. They know they are as well. Like, now for me, lads, honestly, I think it's Baker's year in Carolina, and quite frankly, in the division that they're in, with the Saints, with Jameis, with a healthy Kamara, a sketchy enough OL, with Tom, this could be my last season, Brady, with the Atlanta Falcons, this Carolina Panthers team, if Baker Mayfield can find anywhere near like his 2020 form and epitomize and use CMC, this could be the division this year to watch out. Just putting it out there on the 25th of August.
Yeah, no, I don't always agree with Michael, but fully 100% in agreement on the Sam Darnold is done. And if Matt Corral hadn't been injured, I think Sam Darnold would be QB3, to be honest. It just hasn't worked. But, unfortunately, that can happen sometimes. We don't know. Maybe the stories will emerge. It doesn't seem like lack of effort. It just seems like the transition, it was kind of overwhelming. He'll probably be remembered, for seeing ghosts, and that's probably the moment that probably summed up his NFL career. The concern around, I suppose, the Panthers and Baker and run CMC is injuries. That could be the thing that does open the door back up, especially Christian McCaffrey. Christian McCaffrey is one of the most electric players in the entirety of the league when he's healthy. Can he stay healthy? the issue is that, you hate seeing guys get injured. But when you have an injury record like he does, that's generally the sign that, there may well be more injuries in the future. We've seen Baker have a play hurt last year. Will that have an impact at all this year, or has he totally recovered from that? We got to speak with Jim McMahon, and obviously he talked about the impact that playing through an injury had on him. So to me, I suppose that's it. But I think they put all their eggs in the Baker Mayfield basket. It's up to him to save Matt Rule's job, essentially.
There was, I suppose, during how much? I'm not entirely sure where he's at. Sam Darnold, when he would have his rookie contract, and then he got the deal. He actually got they took the 5th-year option on him last year, which I think was more than the reason of 18 million. So he's not going to be stuck for cash. But it's interesting. I know, this was another one. We always felt this was inevitable that Baker Mayfield was going to be traded to the Panthers, but then the Panthers kept coming out with the narrative that Sam Darnold was progressing well and he was working well with Ben McAdoo and he was learning the offense, and McAdoo came out a couple of times and said complimentary things about him. Then, of course, they do the trade, and what's come to pass is that Mayfield is now the quarterback. There was a couple of articles going around this week that he's the quarterback, but they are kind of putting him on a short leash, that if things weren't going well by week 5, week 6, and they were losing games, that they would potentially look at, giving Sam Darnold that opportunity, which I found surprising. And as you said, the division itself is a bit, I wouldn't say it's in flux, because I still feel the Saints have a really strong defense, can challenge the Bucs to go for the division, and the other two will be third and fourth. But certainly feel the Panthers. There was a lot of games last year Matt Rule would point to where they could have won and they didn't. The Vikings game in overtime, there was a few other games that they looked like they were going to win and they let slip. So they're probably looking at it as if we had won 3 or 4 games, the season could have been very different with a quarterback that wasn't really sustainable in the long run. So again, McCaffrey injuries, and there's other players in that team that tend to pick up injuries. So it'd be interesting to see how they get off to it. Week 1, what more do you want? Playing the Browns. Colin said the Browns were going to win in June when we were at the Ballymount. He said, come on, he said, I think the Panthers are in flux, and there's no doubt the Browns are going to win that game. And I think me and you picked the Panthers, and we did joke about it'll be interesting to see who our picks are come week 1 in September, as opposed to what we were picking in June. But things have flipped on its head, certainly, for that game.
Yeah, week 1. September the 9th, 9:30 p.m. live. We're going to make our week 1 picks. I think that's currently the plan. So you can check that out on Twitter and on YouTube, and podcast will be live from about midnight that night. I guess for Sam Darnold, Colin just needs to keep pounding and just keep going at it. Is there any, I know we're going to talk about the college game in a wee second. Is there anything else that anybody else wants to add to this broadcast? Genuinely, lads, from covering the NFL on a full-time 70-hour-a-week basis, I have nothing else to add. As Brian said about 25 minutes ago, I'm just ready for this to start now, to be honest with you. I feel like we could maybe just take preseason column and just
I'm
a few weeks earlier, personally.
The only thing I'm wondering for preseason week 3 is what exactly Ron Rivera will have Antonio Gibson doing. Will he be in the concession stands? Will he be selling popcorn, or what exactly is he going to have him doing? Because he doesn't seem to want him as a running back with the Commanders.
Brian Robinson, running back, rookie, starting running back for the Washington Commanders week 1. Mark it in.
And as Brian's talking there, if anybody does focus this, and we have a good few people watching this live on YouTube right now, and if you're on Twitter watching this now, go on to YouTube, search Irish NFL Show. If you have any questions for the last 5 minutes, ask them. We'll put them on the screen and we'll talk through them on the podcast as well. A fully fit McCaffrey, will he go 1, 2, 3? And I mean, he's the number 1 pick in the draft for fantasy football. Yeah, are we all in agreement?
No.
A fully fit Christian McCaffrey in fantasy football is the number 1 pick in the draft. No.
Okay.
Who would you pick?
Derrick Henry.
Ooh, Colin, who'd you pick?
Jonathan Taylor this year.
Okay,
yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Let's talk.
But I say that, caveating it, saying that won't be right, because every year there's somebody else who comes in. So we just don't know who that will be as yet.
And that's the beauty of the league. Sorry, Brian, I thought you were going to add something there.
No, I said Saquon. Saquon Barkley.
Jesus Christ.
If you saw his interview this week, no? F
Is
you
he
and
back?
F
I mean,
to me.
here it must be good times in New York. Daniel Jones balling out, Saquon's back, and
I
I'm
think
being serious. I mean,
people
that
will be
sounds good.
pleasantly surprised by the season, which is ahead for Saquon.
And I personally think, and Colin is my witness, I think if the Giants do well, we're going to have better crack on this show. So that's good. I'm really looking
I can't
forward to
argue
that.
with that.
Again, if you have any questions, feel free to ask them, and we'll get back to them before the very, very end of the broadcast. We've got a live show on Saturday morning at 10 a.m. from the Aviva, which we'll probably, we'll talk about it more on Saturday. I was fortunate enough to be down there this morning, and Pat Fitzgerald, who's the head coach of Northwestern, actually asked everybody in media to stay for the whole practice. Nebraska was completely closed off to media from Ireland, and I can't speak genuinely. I cannot speak highly enough of the way that Pat Fitzgerald handled himself this morning, both chatting to him, both on and off camera. And it turns out that he's a big fan of this show, and he watches it most weeks, and he really enjoys it. So for me, I thought that was pretty cool personally. If anybody is listening to this, check on Twitter, Northwestern are wearing like a tricolor sort of helmet on Saturday, and I just think it's pretty cool, Colin, that the fact, obviously London and Munich now are known for their NFL games. I don't think personally we're that far off from having a game here in terms of the NFL. I do think it will happen in the next 5 to 10 years, whether that's in Croke Park, the Aviva, Birdie Bowl 2, or a new stadium once the FAI runs out of the lease on the Aviva. But I don't think we're that far off from genuinely having a game here. I think it's going to happen in the next 10 or 20 years, probably the next 10 years. But it seems like, and it feels like a big moment on Saturday. Both you lads live, Colin, in Dublin, and I came down here today, and you can feel the energy. You can feel, I guess, the sort of motivation that everyone has around it, and it just seems like a big moment for the city to show the world, especially North America, that this is the capital of college football, and we can hopefully after that take it to the next level.
Yeah, it's good to have it back, and I mean it's always been great crack to have the college games here, and they have a long history, and the team seem to enjoy coming over. It's been an interesting couple of weeks, obviously, in terms of the Manti Te'o kind of documentary on Netflix. If people haven't seen it, it's real insight into his story. But his senior year, which truly was exceptional, began in Dublin in that game. And Harrison Butker has obviously been over as well. So in a few years, we could well be talking about some of the guys who are superstars in the NFL, and asking them questions maybe in the lead up to the Super Bowl about how they enjoyed their time in Dublin. I think Northwestern seem to have really kind of embraced it, and I know that they've built in time after the game so that the team have time on Sunday to really actually get time to spend, because obviously this week is going to be busy in terms of the build-up and trainings and media commitments and all that sort of stuff. I'm really excited about getting to see the game in person. Again, I think Croke Park is amazing. Love going to Croker. Particularly to just everything about the history. And Croke Park is one of the best stadiums in Europe, suited though to hurling and football rather than American football. I think the Aviva is much better suited to the game. It's a bit like the Spurs Stadium. Wembley's great, can't wait to go to Wembley, but the reality is Spurs Stadium makes much more sense for American football. It's the same with the Aviva. Should be great atmosphere there on Saturday, and both sides who really, really need a win to start their seasons.
Yeah, that's the narrative now. I'm at, like, we've spoken about this game for so long now. It's now about actually talking about the game itself, and that's why I'm looking forward to the show Saturday morning. We have some good guests, which I believe we're going to announce tomorrow, and we'll probably get more into the detail of the game itself on the weekend. And I would say Nebraska need a win very quickly this season. 3-9 last year. Coach Frost is under pressure, from what you read in terms of the reports, and they've got a tough schedule ahead of them. So it makes for a good game, and Northwestern should have embraced it. And a lot of people are saying they can flip their season around from last year's poor season. So it makes for a great game. And we're all looking forward to it because, as we've said, it's really the start for us as a brand new season, and whets the appetite for what's ahead of us over the next 3 to 4 months.
Yeah, I was fortunate enough to be on the field earlier on, and lads, genuinely, I think it hit me then, and it's almost like football's back, but to see it in your own backyard, in your country, I think it means a lot more. And we'll talk about this on Saturday morning a bit more. I know we're going to have a number of different guests. And, I guess we'll announce one of them now. Sean Callahan, who is the main analyst, the main beat writer for the Nebraska Huskers, is going to come on. He's going to talk not just about his love and affinity and covering for the Huskers. He's also going to talk some Chiefs. And, of course, that point in Harrison Butker as well. It's a real pinpoint for some players, but for other players that maybe don't make it to the league, for a lot of players, this is maybe the highlight of their college career. And you could see that this morning with a lot of them. And I loved it. I really, really enjoyed it this morning. And I really have to give props to Northwestern and also Nebraska as well. Looking forward to Saturday, 10 a.m. It's going to be a great, great broadcast. Really looking forward to it. And our thanks to the Aer Lingus College Football Classic, to the whole team involved there. I got to meet a few of them today for the first time. Big thanks for the support in our broadcast over the last 18 to 24 months. I know it's been a 4 to 5 year exercise for them, Colin. And it's a big moment this weekend for us. And please God, may that work in the bigger things. Never mind college football, but the NFL in the future. You have the winner of our Game Pass for this week.
Yes, indeed. And just again to mention, I suppose, to people that Game Pass, that there are 2 options currently. There's the free option and the paid option. So a lot of people out there are obviously going to, be annual subscribers and going to have it already. But if you are new to it, or if you don't have Game Pass, you can test the waters with a free registration. All you need to do literally is sign up with an email. Would definitely encourage people to check that out. But the winner of the Game Pass for the season, and this is one of quite a few of these that we will be giving out over the next couple of weeks as we build up to the new season. But tonight's winner is Keelan Small. So congratulations to Keelan, and we will be in touch with you to pass on the details, and keep an eye on our various social media channels for all of the details on upcoming competitions.
Can I have a 30-second question here, right? So you say Keelan, right? In Tyrone it's Keelan. In Armagh it's Quaylen. You're saying Keelan. This is a real funny thing about this island, because genuinely, lads, seriously, Keelan? It's Keelan. But well done to you, mate. And it's going to be a big season for you. That's
we clearly butchered his name, but congratulations to you on winning the competition.
We didn't butcher Colin.
You didn't butcher it. It's just funny in different areas. We have different names. I'll talk about it off camera, but yes, that's the way of it. That's it. Yeah, that's it. That's it for now. We're back at 10 o'clock on Saturday. We have got a divisional preview tomorrow night at 9 o'clock on YouTube. The podcast drops at 6:01 a.m. If you're up getting your breakfast tomorrow morning, you've got a podcast to listen to. Mark Cockerill is on it as well. Big shout out to Mark for his good internet, and it didn't take 4 days to edit it at all. But great to have Mark back. Very, very quickly on the questions and comments, because we've got 9 comments. No, we don't. Fred Flunk says, great show, lads.
Thanks, Fred.
Ian Rappaport saying, Jari should be fine after an MRI. How many sacks will him and Thibodeau record if fit this season? Under 0.5, Brian. Yeah? I'm joking.
You want an answer? Well, Larry got 8.5 last year. He got 8.5 last year. He set the franchise record last year. So,
do you know how many Thibodeau got in college last year in 12 games? No,
9.5, I think.
So minimum 6.5.
Well, Thibodeau's breaking the rookie record of 14.5. That's a given. So I'd say between them probably about 21, 22. No, I'd say about. I'm going to go around 16. Roy Keane's number.
Rookie of the year, then, yeah. We've got a few. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 comments from NFLHDR.com for spamming. Thank you so much for spamming our live stream. It gives us more views and helps our algorithm. So thank you very much. We also got Fred saying peace out, fellas, and Andy saying well done, Karen. I think he's talking about Colin.
Thanks, Fred. Peace be with you. I hope you enjoyed Monday night. Thanks very much.
And good luck for the Cowboys.
Okay, let's end it. Let's say we will announce tomorrow. We have a few really great guests joining us on our live broadcast from the Aviva, 10 a.m. on Saturday. Announcement tomorrow. Keep an eye on that. Some guys who played college football and in the NFL as well.
And not just that, we're back at 10 a.m. on Saturday, as Colin said, as we have the divisional previews tomorrow night. But we also, lads, have a big giveaway on Saturday, thanks to EA Sports Madden NFL. On Saturday morning, we're giving away some Trust goodies, apparently, a copy of EA Sports Madden NFL, and NFL Game Pass for the year if you retweet on Twitter or share or comment on our YouTube video of our live show from the Aviva. And I know Brian is going to sit after the show in the Aviva and edit all the podcasts to have it up by 2 o'clock before kickoff. But for now, I cannot think of any other way to end tonight's show than this. We are 2 days away from, quite frankly, a massive day, probably the most substantial day of the history of the sport on this island in 10 years. And we'll see everybody on Saturday. If you do see us on Saturday, give us a shout. Colin only charges €3 for autographs. Brian charges, is it 15, Brian, you're charging at the minute? There's no change for 20s, no? I'm joking. I'm only messing. Here, if you do see us on Saturday, folks, give us a shout. I'd love to chat to you. Got to chat to some people today as well. Really appreciate your support. See you on Saturday. See you at 10 o'clock live. And I can't think of any other way to end tonight's broadcast than this. As we get it. Do you know what, lads? It's not working. I'm just gonna leave it at that. And here it is. I can't think of any other way to leave it than this. Have a good night.